I think we can start, Meredith.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Meredith McCurdy, and I am the program leader of Sports for Nature. So we want to welcome you to our second in our series of Nature Sportified Webinars. Today is Sports and Nature in Cities, an odd couple or the perfect marriage. So we shall see. As a couple of housekeeping items, so the session is being recorded and will be shared on the Sports for Nature website, so please keep that in mind. If you have questions or comments, please use the Q&A tool rather than the chat. So try to put things in the Q&A. And then lastly, if you're interested in displaying captions, we just have a quick instructions here. You can tap the More button with the 3 dots at the top, and then click on Show Live Captions. So now that housekeeping is all in order, I just wanted to share a little bit more about Sports for Nature. So Sports for Nature launched in December of 2022 as a joint initiative of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, which is where myself and my colleagues Jana and Emmanuel are housed. Also in collaboration with the International Olympic Committee, the UN Environment Programme, the UN Secretariat for the Convention on Biological Diversity, and Dona Bertarelli Philanthropy. So it's quite a mouthful, but each of these partners really brings something unique to our collaboration, and we're really pleased to have them here. So we launched, as I mentioned, in December 2022 with about 22 signatories to our Sports for Nature framework. That framework is 4 basic principles that sport organizations can apply to include nature and biodiversity in their operations and sustainability planning. We now have exactly 114 signatories, but representing over 30 sports around the world. So really quite diverse base of signatories as well. Those signatories all commit to act for nature and report to us annually as well on their actions. So Sports for Nature, in order to help serve our signatories and the greater sporting community, we've started these webinars. This is just our second in the series. And our main goals are to help make nature relevant to all sports, and in this case, including those based in cities, and really build a bridge between nature conservation and sports. We're hoping that this session will provide some concrete inspiration and ideas for action and showcase the great work of our other webinar guests and panelists. I also really want to thank my colleague Jana for leading this. A little bit of a spoiler alert, we are launching an urban playbook. So talking more about how urban biodiversity and sports work together, not only in urban environments, but even, semi sort of city community type of environments. A lot of work went in. I want to recognize Jana as well as Russell Galt, who's also one of our panelists today, reimagining this guidance and toolkit, as well as Nico, Danielle, and Andy, who have contributed their time to talking about their expertise and their great examples. So without further ado, over to Jana.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Meredith, and welcome to you all to today's webinar as well. When we speak about cities and nature, we don't often imagine a thriving nature jungle. Rather, we imagine a concrete jungle in a city where nature is often put to the sidelines. But what if we could flip this scenario, and what if sport could play a major role in bringing nature back into the cities and having nature or helping nature thrive? In today's webinar, we will try to address these hows and whys of why sport should try to bring nature in, and what benefits this bringing nature in, working for nature can actually bring to sports, bring to cities at large, and bring to the communities in which sporting organizations are based. We will also answer the questions of how we should approach it and what are the scientific principles of bringing nature in. And we will also have a look at many concrete examples of what this kind of nature find, if you will, of sporting infrastructure and sports operation in cities and urban areas look like in practice, because there are so many good examples out there. And it's not going to be our team only speaking about nature. I'm thrilled to welcome amongst us our expert panel, our all-star speaking panel, representing major sporting organizations, starting with the All England Lawn Tennis Club with Andrew Wyro. Wimbledon has just started, so it's a very timely discussion today. Then we have with us Daniela Doza. Welcome, Daniela, joining us from Cleveland, United States, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And our last sports representative is Nico Briscorn, representing Wolfsburg Football Club, a Premier or Bundesliga club from Germany. To introduce us to these more scientific concepts, as well as the why should we as sport in cities care about nature, we have Russell Gold with us, who is not only head of science and natural capital at Nature Broking, but he's also the lead author of the Sports for Nature Urban Playbook, which I will introduce you in a moment. But as well, Russell is a member of the Sports for Nature Advisory Group. So, Russell, I will hand over the microphone directly to you, and please do take us through nature in cities and sport.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Jana, for that kind introduction. And hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. So let me start with something very simple. I love sport, and I'm sure you do too. Maybe you play 5-a-side or 11-a-side or even 15-a-side. Maybe you run to explore new places. Maybe you're a weekend warrior, fully clad in lycra, or perhaps you coach a junior team, living vicariously through them. Perhaps you're an armchair pundit with very strong opinions. However you do it, I'm sure that sport brings to you what it brings to me: joy, connection, and identity. And it happens mostly in cities, which, as we now know, are the stage on which the future of humanity will be decided, where we'll win or lose the battle for life on Earth, for a stable climate system, and a fair and prosperous society. Despite occupying just a few percent of Earth's land surface, they are responsible for more than 3/4 of the world's natural resource consumption, 80% of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, and a similar share of global GDP. They are the centers of financial, political, and social capital. They are drivers of innovation, growth, and transformation. And of course, for many of us, they are home. Not just for many of us, for the surging majority of us, some 4.6 billion people and counting. But they also suffer. They are disproportionately exposed to climate and disaster risks, often exacerbated by the degradation of natural capital. Risks that are increasingly familiar to many of us: drought, heat stress, pollution, flooding, widening social inequality, the disconnect from the natural world. All these problems are manifest in cities. Now, the good news is that we have solutions, cost-effective and elegant solutions, nature-based solutions. Trees mop up pollutants, dampen noise, and cool the air. Wetlands and rain gardens and forested catchments absorb storm flow and reduce flood risk. Mangroves and marshes buffer against storm surge. And green spaces facilitate exercise, spiritual nourishment, and community interaction. And greenways, many of you will have commuted to work on a greenway this morning, they support active travel. And yet, in most cities, the provision of nature is wholly inadequate. Far too many people are denied nature's benefits. We can and we must do better. So this is where sport can really lead the way. It's ubiquitous, it's global, it's trusted, it's loved. It's one of the very few sectors, the very few activities that still draws people outdoors, face to face, shoulder to shoulder, week after week. It has enormous soft power, convening power. It has the scale, the resources, the reach to fundamentally challenge norms, to rethink prevailing forms and patterns of urbanization, to regenerate neighborhoods, to transform city skylines, and even to reimagine our collective urban future. And in doing so, sports organizations and their stakeholders can unlock real, tangible benefits. I will elaborate shortly. But firstly, I would like to share this picture of Ericeira. This is where I was last week. It's a coastal town in Portugal, and it's a shining example of a town that has harnessed the power of nature to revitalize itself. Since being designated as a World Surfing Reserve, Ericeira has received an influx of creatives, entrepreneurs, and investment. The surfing's not too bad either. Now, from our research entailing an analysis of some 56 case studies and dozens of interviews, we have distilled some 7 distinct ways in which urban nature directly benefits sport. So let's walk over them. Firstly, cooling athletes, participants, and fans. Nobody performs at their best under a scorching sun. Green infrastructure can lower temperatures in and around venues by up to 8 degrees Celsius. That's huge. Secondly, keeping the field of play playable. Waterlogged pitches, flooded car parks, cancelled matches. These cost money and momentum. By soaking up excess water, nature keeps facilities functioning. Thirdly, purifying air and water for peak performance. Vegetation and soil can filter pollutants from both the air we breathe and the water we drink or play in. And we all stand to benefit from a cleaner, healthier environment. Fourthly, we are all drawn to beauty, so beautifying venues for better experiences. Nature makes venues delightful. The scent of flowers, the chorus of birds, dappled light on a forest floor, these all enhance the fan experience and elevate your brand. Fifthly, quickening recovery and strengthening mindsets. So there's plenty of evidence that athletes exposed to nature enjoy better sleep, faster recovery, reduced stress, and stronger mental resilience. Now, in sport, where victory is often measured in millimeters and milliseconds, nature may just be the most overlooked performance enhancer of all, and it's entirely legal. Sixthly, bringing communities together. So tree planting, citizen science, bio blitzes, gardening, beach cleanups, nature-based activities bring fans, players, and residents together to deepen local pride, to build loyalty, and to open doors to sponsorship. And finally, future-proofing venues. So this is all about resilience and economics. Nature helps venues cope with climate shocks, reduce energy bills and water bills, boost asset value, and protect insurance premiums. So it pays to invest in nature. But how do we actually realize those benefits? Well, we turn to the elements of urban nature adapted from the Making Nature City Toolkit by the San Francisco Estuary Institute. This is a science-based framework for building urban biodiversity. The most obvious thing we can do is make space for nature. We can achieve this by increasing habitat patch size or winning ground to attract and encompass more species. We can also improve connectivity between habitat patches with ecological corridors and stepping stones. They improve the permeability of the landscape, enabling the movement of wildlife populations for breeding, feeding, migrating, mating, or dispersal. And we can improve the matrix quality. That's the grey between the green, essentially making grey spaces more nature inclusive. Another way to boost urban biodiversity is by improving habitat quality, using varied landscaping techniques to promote habitat and structural diversity, and thereby supporting a broader array of species. And we can plant native vegetation. Native plants are locally adapted. They require less maintenance, less irrigation, and they are ecologically integrated. That is, they are dialed in to the local ecosystem, providing essential habitat and food sources for native wildlife. And finally, we can manage nature better. This includes protecting special resources, for instance, ponds, dead wood piles, or even particularly old or large trees. It can also include some very simple measures like reducing mowing frequency, reducing chemical inputs, softening the lighting, or erecting sound barriers. All these innovations can make a big difference for local wildlife. Now, I mentioned the 56 case studies we reviewed, but there were in fact many, many more we could have looked at. This is just a small selection. We found in our research buzzing bee hotels at the F1 circuit in Suzuka, ecological surf camps and beach cleanups in Dakar, a cricket stadium in Bangalore, which recycles sewage for irrigation. We found a Vietnamese golf course using driftwood to create nesting sanctuaries, a race course in Cape Town protecting critically endangered fynbos habitat, American skate parks functioning as biodiverse bioswales, a football team in Dar es Salaam that plants trees for every goal scored, a taekwondo group in Rio de Janeiro embracing environmentalism as their underlying philosophy. We found refugees cultivating vegetable gardens at the All Blacks Fortress, Eden Park. And we found British rowers monitoring freshwater quality out of concern for their safety on the River Thames. And we found that the largest mega-scale sporting events from Paris to LA have become living laboratories for sustainability, pushing the boundaries of ecological urbanism. There's already so much happening, and the momentum, I can assure you, is very, very real, thanks largely to this Sports for Nature initiative. But anyway, you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from the panelists, the experts who are actually doing this incredible work on the ground. I personally am very excited to hear from them. So thank you for your consideration and attention.
Thank you very much, Russell. And I hope everybody now is convinced that it is not only possible to bring nature in cities through sport, but that it is also good for sporting organizations. Russell has hinted a little bit on the how sports can bring nature in their operations. And he has shown you a couple of images from our Urban Playbook. And I'm really excited to hereby launch our Sports for Nature Urban Playbook. The playbook builds, as Russell has mentioned, on a previously published resource, a guide, Sport and Urban Biodiversity, which is built on the 7 principles of urban nature that Russell has just shown you. We took this scientific framework and our main aim was turn it into something that would be as practical as possible for sporting organizations and as full as possible of practical examples from around the world that could be relevant to you and your operations. The playbook is structured in several main chapters. The introduction outlines what Russell basically went through, mainly the why and the scientific principles. The 3rd chapter then will help you build the foundations. It will take you through a site assessment, both from a desktop research where you can use freely accessible geospatial mapping tools and other resources, as well as introducing you to an initial site assessment. In bringing these guidelines and recommendations together, we worked with the Sports for Nature signatories. The site assessment has been even tested by one grassroots football club from the UK. Then the last section, which I think might be the most interesting for all of you, is all about examples and suggestions of concrete actions structured along 4 different chapters: buildings, club grounds, the neighborhood, the wider neighborhood, and then education, advocacy, and anything that you can do to promote nature conservation and nature in your venues and operations to your fans, to your participants, to your stakeholders. The last part of the playbook is dedicated to 4 case studies, which provide a holistic approach of how these suggestions can be turned into practice. And we are not leaving you only with examples and guidelines. We wanted to provide you also with very concrete tools, such as checklists or strategy outlines that you can use in your everyday work. What I personally find perhaps the most interesting and useful are actually the overview of all the actions that are included throughout the document into a short 4-page overview, where you can also find how the action relates to the elements of urban nature and which co-benefits it would bring to your organization. The second very useful overview is the additional 30 case studies or examples, if you will, which are also featured in the Sports for Nature Urban Playbook and its toolkit. So this is it. These are the examples, and this is where you will find the playbook. So you can take your phone, scan the QR code, or Emmanuel, if he hasn't done so yet, he will shortly paste, and he has done so. Brilliant. The link to the playbook in the chat, so you can have a look at it directly there. You can find it on our website, and we will follow up as well with an email containing the link. And I think this makes for a nice segue, speaking of examples and of how things are working and can be working in practice, to our fantastic panel. So I will take the presentation down so that you can see our fantastic 3 speakers. So welcome again to Andy, Daniela, and Nico. Really, really happy to have you today with us. For all these activities and actions that a sport organization can take or implement in their operations and in their venues, it is really important to be aware of the spheres of influence and control the organization has. In other words, who owns your infrastructure? Is it the club? Is it the city? Who operates the infrastructure? All these elements will have an influence on what is actually possible. And here I would just like to underline that every sport organization can do something, even if you don't own or operate your own infrastructure. So we will start with that. And we will start with Andy. Can you tell us a bit more about how Wimbledon, how the beautiful infrastructure is the ownership is structured, and what role do you play in the Wimbledon's team?
So firstly, hello from SW at 19. I'm Andy Wayrow, and I'm Senior Landscape and Environment Manager at the club. I lead the sort of the nature positive strand of our environment positive. To your question, Jana, I think there are lots of different things. We're very fortunate that we have a long history and we own most of our grounds, so we have a little bit more control than other organisations. But it's about thinking about nature all the way through the process. So we're always developing new things and improving our sites, and it's about thinking about nature at the beginning and making sure that it's incorporated into those designs wherever possible. I like to talk about sort of the layering and stacking, which I think has been really well demonstrated in the presentation before. You know, you can combine these things. So, you know, doing a benefit for nature doesn't necessarily need to sit aside from other things. And that's a great way of combining it with another thing. So improving cooling or improving the environment for people to visit. And we're really lucky that obviously the championships is, you know, tennis in an English garden is part of our USP, and we play on grass. And so part of the experience of coming to Wimbledon is having these beautiful grounds, which the team spend all year round maintaining. But it's also about the bits behind the scenes, which are creating space for nature and making sure that it can be protected and thrive.
Brilliant, thank you. So now we see an example of a traditional, super well-known venue organization event that owns their infrastructure. Now moving to Danielle, can you tell us a bit about the Rocket Arena, the sport clubs actually functioning there, also the baseball club, which is just next door that you told me was connected to the arena by a bridge or underground bridge?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Dozo with the Cleveland Cavaliers and Rock Entertainment Group. So Rock Entertainment Group owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, of course, our NBA G League team, the Cleveland Charge, our American Hockey League team, the Cleveland Monsters. And on Monday, we announced that we will be a new WNBA team starting in 2028. So now we'll have 4 teams, which is really exciting. A lot of opportunity to connect with fans in the community. Rocket Arena is a 30-year-old venue. It is owned by the city and county. We fully operate and manage the arena. So we have pretty much full control, but we do not own the facility or the grounds around it. And the baseball stadium next door, I think we might be the two closest sports facilities in the country. We are connected underground. That facility is also owned by the city and county. And we regularly talk to our neighbors, the guardians. Nature is, of course, all around us. We are in a very urban environment. There's a lot of concrete around us, very little green space, a major road next to us. So it is hard to find green space or integrate green space, but there is some landscaping around. So we look to other ways to integrate nature or focus on nature in the areas a little bit outside of our arena or in neighborhoods around Cleveland. And we are building a brand new practice facility as well. You can see the rendering behind us, and that is going to be located on our river. So we're going to be more of a direct stakeholder of our river, and I know we can get into a bit of that. But we're very much thinking about, in our very urban environment, how do we impact nature and how does nature impact us?
Wonderful. Thank you, Danielle. And we'll dive in more detail into the concrete actions that you are taking. But before we do so, Nico, what's the situation in Wolfsburg?
Yeah, hello, everyone. Great to be with you. I'm Nico, heading the CSR or Sustainability Department in Wolfsburg, German Bundesliga club, playing football. We are, let's say, internal consultants for sustainability in general, setting up goals, implementing measures, and monitoring KPIs. We directly report towards the CEO. When it comes to environmental topic issues, we have an interdisciplinary team inside the club, mostly of the infrastructure department and our sustainability team. So there's the energy manager, the environmental manager, and our climate protection manager working close together. And the basis of this work is the environmental strategy we reworked last year and has been worked out with all relevant internal stakeholders, and where one action area is biodiversity with clear targets and a roadmap. And I would say, if we look on the journey that we started 2010, it came from an initial environmental measures and targets in certain topics to a holistic environmental strategy, but it has all the journey along been more a chance-oriented rather than a risk-based approach. When we look on our stadiums, we are actually the owner of two stadiums, the men's stadium and the women's stadium, and all our training grounds. So we have quite a good control. And I would say it's kind of a biodiversity hub already, because we are located in the local recreation area. So we have a lake close by, two rivers, and forest areas. So when I walk over the grounds, I may run into different animal species from time to time that sometimes cross my path. So I think for us, when we look on our responsibility, it's about preserving the value of nature in the surrounding areas. It's about creating additional value, and it's about activating our stakeholders.
Great to hear, Nico, and we'll also dive a bit deeper into what the concrete actions are just in a moment. But coming back to you, Andy, you've mentioned this English garden experience. And while maybe these manicured lawns might not be a synonym to biodiversity, what exactly are you doing to not only preserve the fantastic natural assets that you have, but to also help nature thrive? And what are your plans maybe in the coming months and years?
I think it's a really good point. You know, we acknowledge that grass, particularly high performing sports turf surfaces, are not necessarily the most useful to nature at times, but it's about the spaces around those courts, stadia, and our wider grounds. And so what we're looking at as an organization is, as I sort of touched on, is we're embedding biodiversity net gain into our projects, so really pushing the boundary on that. There's some examples that I can show later on, which are a site. We have a couple of sites across southwest London, and one in particular, the redesign of our community sports centre at Rains Park. We decided to make sure that we embedded nature in that design. So not only did we have a flooding issue, but we had an opportunity to really showcase that the biodiversity uplift is possible. But on the main grounds, it's really, it's a couple of things. It's making sure that we protect what we have. Oh, there we go. The examples of the community tennis centre at Rains Park. So the before was very much a playing field, which flooded. After the development, we have a number of swales, ponds, wildflower meadows, and it's almost a mosaic of habitats. And that also protects the residents that live nearby, but also make sure that the playing facilities, so we have 16 grass courts, are protected from that potential flooding. So it's sort of combining the two together. It's also the setting. It allows people to have somewhere where, as was talked about earlier, there's the mental health benefits and to this setting, but it also really just brings it all together. So going back to my points, for us, it's really important because we host the championships every year. And we're bringing a lot of people to the grounds. So part of that is about making sure we protect the nature that exists, create that breathing space for it, but also enhance those habitats. It's also about acknowledging that tennis and English garden, it can be very cultivated, but we need to find those spaces where you have a much more relaxed management plan, which allows nature to really own those spaces. Keeping people out as well as letting people in is also really important. But it's really a mosaic of habitats, and that's the key thing. But education is key to all of this, because we don't sit in a bubble. We're working with the whole entire organisation so everybody realises the benefits. And also that the players, so this weekend we just had a media weekend, the players are coming in as well, and we're interacting with them and discussing nature-related activities that we're doing on a big scale, but we're relating it to things that they can do at home, because we all acknowledge that what we do on a big scale, or we do as a sporting organisation, is important, but it's also inspiring that wider action.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andy, for this short outline of the many activities that you're doing at your venue and in the surrounding areas. Nico, you have already mentioned that in Wolfsburg, first of all, you own your facilities, but that you are already nested in quite rich nature. You are the first Bundesliga club to have conducted a biodiversity survey. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about why you've decided to do it and to what extent it has led to the concrete activities that you're implementing?
Well, a few years ago, I would say we honestly didn't have that much of expertise on the fields of biodiversity. So the idea we came up was to commission 3 well-known scientists back in 2021, who had 20 years of experience and also passion for sports in general. And to give them the task to examine our impact of our business on biodiversity and the dependence on ecosystem services. So the process was kind of a combination of a desktop research, on-site visits, discussions with employees, partners, like the city of Wolfsburg or local NGOs. And together with our expertise, the scientists carried out a qualitative assessment in the form of a traffic light system in order to identify relevant fields of action. So we knew the conditions from that on, and we tried then to shape a solid game plan, like it said in the urban playbook I read. So there were also some recommendations for actions included, and we had some quick wins we already did very quick then. So establishing wildflowers directly beside the training grounds. We implemented nesting boxes for different and rare bird species. We also put up a vegetable garden for the cooks who are cooking for our professional teams, and intensified even our maintenance for our green spaces. And on a long-term perspective, we were more looking on the integration of biodiversity on the construction measures. So looking on green roofs, we already implemented, not all of them, but some of them. It's about unsealing of surfaces, but it's also about planting of open spaces with native plants, etc. And we have a clear target to at least put up 25 of those measures listed in the study until 2030. And I don't think it's necessary for each club to have such a study, but at least it's necessary, or it's a good advice maybe to get in contact with your local stakeholders. And Some of them might be season card holders and have a strong identification to your team, and to talk to them about what is necessary and get the expertise from them.
Thank you very much, Nico, for being a great ambassador of the suggestions and recommendations that we have included in our urban playbook, because the last point that you've mentioned, working with local conservation groups, is basically the #1 advice that we're giving to sporting organizations, alongside knowing where you're based, not only from the perspective of, knowing which shops or which stakeholders in terms of organizations are around, but also what nature is around. And we're hoping the initial site assessment guidance will help you do just that. However, it will not help you, for example, in choosing which native plants would be appropriate for your venue, or where to plant or where to put a bird box that you might create as part of your after-school program with children in your club. So thank you for those examples, Nico. And now moving from 2 venues that are set in nature within the city context to one, as Daniela said, set more in the concrete jungle situation. You have already outlined a little bit the bigger picture, but can you tell us a bit more about how you go beyond the 3 main management areas of energy waste and water management, and how you bring nature in both operations and your plans for your training grounds?
Mm-hmm. It's difficult to bring nature into an environment where we have little control around us. However, natural light is one way, essentially, to bring nature in. And our team members talk about it a lot. We have over 500 team members, about at least 400 of those who work on site in our arena at our offices. And they think about, okay, can we have more images of nature in the office, things like that. So team members are pushing for this. In 2019, we went through a major renovation of the arena. Again, it's 30 years old. Part of that was enclosing an outdoor space. It used to be outdoors, and now it's our indoor atrium, which is, I think, about 60,000 square feet. With that, there's all these, it's large glass walls. It's a beautiful space. It does bring in a lot of natural light. However, there was a negative impact that was not necessarily foreseen, which was bird strikes. So we are in a major bird migration route. We sit on Lake Erie. Lots of birds come through this area, and we quickly realized, okay, this is a problem. There were people who would come and collect birds. So we were made aware of this issue, and we want to do the right thing, right? It is not something that we want to continue to do. So we found a solution to add to the windows. So a lot of people might see, little dots on windows for birds, so birds can see those. So this is a newer application called Bird Divert. It's actually a see-through application. There are still little dots, but now on our massive windows all around, this was installed last year, and we have some anecdotal evidence that it has had a significant, made a significant reduction in bird strikes, which is really exciting. So there were some local birding organizations that were pushing for this, and they were thrilled to see this. So again, it is anecdotal. We are not necessarily capturing data with cameras or anything like that, but we're really excited about it because it is a newer product, and we hope to be able to advocate for this more within the industry, at other facilities. So one, that is a very big thing. We also encourage a lot of our folks to get outside. We have a team member health program. Part of that is a challenge to do hikes in nature, especially over the summer, and team members can take snapshots and send it in to participate in our health challenge. So really trying to get people out into nature. And we have a partnership this year. A few years ago, we did a partnership, and now we have a partnership again this year with the Cleveland Metro Parks. It is our local large park organization. They manage over 25,000 acres of a park system in the region. They manage our zoo as well and 9 golf courses. So it is a really great organization. And we can work with them to promote nature in different ways, which is really cool. Not only do they work in urban parks, they also in a lot of suburban areas too. So their goal is to make sure everyone within Greater Cleveland can get to a park within 15 minutes. And I think, most of our team members are able to do that too. That's a big one. I mentioned our large practice facility that's being built right on the river. We can see the river from our arena, and now we're going to be able to, be right on the river with our new practice facility that will be open in 2 years. So what is that impact? The river is very important to us. Leads into our lake, which is our drinking water system, huge source of recreation and commerce. So we are starting to think, okay, how do we promote the health of our lake more, connect our fans more to the river and the lake? But around our practice facility, there will be a lot of native plantings. This is the first vertical development of a 30-acre development. We will also not own this practice facility. However, our sister company, Bedrock Development, will own it. And Bedrock is developing this 30 acres, and we are heavily involved in that. So we have the same owner. So we can work with our sister company on elements of nature along the river, and there will be a lot more access for people to come into the river, which is really great. So again, directly thinking about that native plantings, we will have a stormwater basin there, so to collect a lot of stormwater that will be on site. But it is very limited. Right now, there was really no access to the river for people, so this will be a really nice way for those for folks to get access. And then, coming back to our team members, we have a couple of volunteer opportunities that our team members really love to do. One is beach cleanups. Like I mentioned, we're right on the lake. There's some beaches nearby, so we do beach cleanups with our team members. And then we do a fun kayak event a few times a summer with this organization called Trash Fish. So about, a dozen to 15 of us, we go out and kayak the Cuyahoga River for 2 hours and pick up trash and learn about the impacts of plastic pollution on our waterways. And we hope to just expand and promote that a little bit more.
Fantastic. So I hope that everybody got a lot of ideas for the activities that they can implement in their organizations and venues, going from low cost, like bird safe windows, just sticking some applications on windows, to interventions that might be a bit more costly, like a new training facilities development. But as I mentioned at the beginning of today's conversation, all sports organizations have an opportunity to do at least something for nature. Danielle, you have already touched upon the many things that you do for your community with your team members. Is there anything else how you're kind of bringing nature into activities for the wider community, for your fans maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yes, one program is called Trees for Threes. So for every 3-point shot made during the regular season, we will plant a tree in Northeast Ohio with our partner Daytree. And we ensure all of those trees are cared for. We're really focused on that. It's easy to plant a tree. Can be cheap to plant a tree seedling, but if it is not cared for and managed, it is not going to survive. So the benefits are not there. So we're really focused on planting more mature trees in the area. Some of that is in urban spaces, but it is very hard to plant urban trees, as a lot of people might know. A lot of them don't survive. The soil might not be great. And it's expensive, which folks don't realize. So we're looking to, whether it's areas within the city or around the city, where we know we can plant a lot of trees and really grow the tree canopy. So some of them are planted in the Cleveland metro parks. We have a large arboretum here that manages over 3,000 acres, and then other park systems in the area. So this past year we planted over 580 trees. The most previous season was I think our most trees of the season. So we will be planting over 660 trees in the coming year. So that's really important to us, is working with other organizations we know those trees are going to grow to maturity in our own region. So that's a really big one. And we're really working to contribute to the city as well. The city of Cleveland and a lot of stakeholders are working to make this a green city on a blue lake. So, that's one of the kind of a guiding star, is that mantra, green city on a blue lake.
Fantastic. And this brings me to another great tree planting project, Nico. Fan engagement and cooperation are key in Wolfsburg Forest project. Can you tell us more about that and about the link to your general carbon footprint diminution activities? How that all came about? Is it just a climate project, or is it more?
Well, the VFL forest is, first of all, part of the urban forest, so it's very visible to the urban community. And the initial idea back in 2014, 10 years ago, was raising awareness and activating fans. So we have a planting day with everyone coming together, supporters, fans, our players, the CEO, and it's just about, or mainly about, bringing climate and nature conversation to life. And this is one example. Another one is that in the past, we've also given fans opportunity to invest in planting trees via the online shop through a cooperation project with project modules in the Global South, but also regionally in the Harz Mountains, a low mountain range in the region that has been severely affected by forest dieback. And these regional projects increase the identification and willingness to donate, and 12% of the fans did so. So it's quite a good number. But I would say both projects aren't a big part of our climate and compensation strategy. Another project I was mentioned there is the cooperation we started at the beginning of the year with Germany's largest nature conservation organization, the NABU. As part of the partnership, we are investing in moorland protection in the area, Lower Saxony, and activating players, employees, fans through active days in the moor and other examples. And I don't know if you're aware of, I didn't know the numbers before, but I mean, peatlands are among the most fascinating wilderness areas in the world, and wet peatlands bind a quarter of terrestrial carbon, although they only make up 3% of the world's land area and therefore store twice as much as all the world's forests combined. And this in mind, and knowing that NABU is it's a loved brand in Germany with more than 1 million members, and it's very regional active. This came to a very good identification and activation of our fans and supporters who really like this cooperation. So this is a perfect match for us and our strategy.
That's a great example to share, Nico, and a great fact to remember for everyone. I did not know, maybe I should have, but I hope our viewers and listeners will keep that fact in mind. Andy, what role does nature play in your community work, and how important are partnerships in what you do with your community, bringing nature in?
I think it's extremely important. I think we've done quite a bit in this space over the last few years. We started with Meet the Experts, so the opportunity for the community to come in and meet experts in different areas and really see the grounds and talk about things that we're planning to do in the future. That sort of evolved into what we now refer to as our nature weekends. So it's an opportunity for our local community to come in, learn about actions that they can take at a smaller scale at home. So it's inspiring that wider action, but also see the projects we're bringing forward and where nature sits within that. So we have 3 within the year at the moment. So one that's around the power of water. So there's an opportunity to do lots of activities with young people and families in that space. And then we have a nocturnal nature in sort of later in the year after the championships, and then one in November, which is about preparing for winter. So what are the things you can do at home? What's important to nature? But I think it's really connected us to a completely different community. So obviously there are lots of people who are massive fans of tennis, and that's amazing, and that's the people that we deal with day in, day out. But actually our local communities don't all love tennis. But nature is something that's really a thread that everybody can relate to. They've all got an experience from childhood or just from their day-to-day activities. So there's a lot more people coming to those kind of events that are a new audience, which is great. And what we found is that we've been able to give them guides that they can take home and do things themselves. So make a mini pond, or create a bat box and put it in your garden or your community space. So there's sort of the wider action thing that's really important to us.
Right. Great. Again, fantastic examples that everybody can take that home. Maybe flip through the urban playbook and go back to the recording. Maybe remember some of those actions that our guests have mentioned. Now, looking at the Q&A, we have received a couple of questions from our audience. First question is very specific. I think it would go mainly to our outdoors or pitch sport guests. How are sport organizations considering the effect of floodlights on nocturnal life? I think it's more question to Andy and Nico. I don't know who would want to take up.
I'm happy to start, and then Nico can add. So I think the advantage we have of tennis on grass is that our playing season is generally from May to September, and we tend to play during daylight hours. So that's an easy win, really. We try to minimise additional lighting on those courts. When it comes to the hard surfaces that we have for additional practice, we're very conscious of basically making sure that our lights are focused on the courts and creating dark skies in areas where we have particular protected species, or we know there's foraging corridors. So it's a balance, and actually picking the right lighting is crucial.
Great, thank you. Nico, would you have anything to add?
It's almost the same for us. I would like to add that there's a new law coming up, actually. I don't know if it's just for Germany or Europe, but where you have to actually look on your lightnings and how's your influence on a certain species, etc. So at least the ones from sports organizations in Europe should look at that. I think it's coming up in 2026.
Thank you.
I can actually
go ahead, Dana.
add to that. We might actually be the most relevant to this. I mentioned those bird strikes and with bird migration, some migration tends to happen at night. And lights in cities draw birds in, and then they get confused, and that's when a lot of window strikes happen. So it's not necessarily having windows, it is light that draws birds in. We're very much aware of that. The struggle we come up against is for public safety reasons, cities want to turn lights on at night. So sometimes you see a lot of street lights on, other lights on. And we don't have the answer to this yet. To be clear, we are still talking about this, working on it. There's a lot we do not have figured out yet, but just want to recognize that we understand that issue. So how can we work on it? But it is a balance of public safety, and it's just a lot we don't have control over.
Maybe a follow-up question, Danielle. Do you know of any coalitions, groups of venue owners that are working specifically with the cities on this type of challenges?
I don't. Lights specifically, I don't. If anyone out there knows, please let me know, or maybe it's something we need to start talking about. But there is, I know, organization called Lights Out. There's an organization called Lights Out Cleveland or Lights Out Ohio, worked with us on the bird film, so we are talking to them, and so I think around the United States, at least, there are some of these smaller birding organizations working on it, but it is something to have a broader conversation about.
Thank you very much. I will leave the second question with some permission to our next webinars, where we would like to focus on procurement. And I'll move to Matt's question, which is about ecosystem services. And Matt is asking, it's a question to Nico first. what is the value of nature of Bethel Wolfsburg? And have the other speakers done any similar work to understand the value of nature in your organizations? I think, Nico, if you could start.
Yeah, I mean, we had a close look on it within the study. So what can we do? What are the dependence on ecosystem services? What are the risks? Yeah, from the destruction of biodiversity, also the impacts on various business activities on biodiversity, and also looked there on certain standards and evaluated them. But unfortunately, I wouldn't be the one to, because I wouldn't say I'm a biodiversity expert, so I couldn't deep dive in the moment. But I would be happy to share the study with the question with the guy who had the question. So, and
great, thank you, Nico. And maybe Danielle or Andy, have you done any such work in your organizations?
So we've actually started some work around that. So we started with very much just understanding what our baselines were, particularly on our estate. What what are we working with? What do we need to ensure that we maximize? But I think a good place to start in terms of particularly around the biodiversity piece is, what are the priority species or the habitats that are being lost in your particular place? Is there an opportunity to create more space for nature or kind of address that balance in your urban setting? Because nature can't thrive without habitats to live in. So that's a really good thing to kind of really start with. And there's generally resources within, local guidance in your place in the world.
Great, thank you, Andy.
We haven't done a study or anything. I've certainly been thinking about it, and what does that mean? What is the value of nature? So it's something we're thinking about. How do we approach it? I don't know yet. We've had a couple conversations with Sports for Nature. We'll be diving into the new urban playbook a little bit more as well, and then engaging our social impact team on that. And how do we integrate nature into our social impact work is something we're thinking about. But and I should say I've been on the team a little less than 2 years. I think we've done a tremendous amount in 2 years, but still a lot of opportunity, especially in the nature space.
Great. We're almost at time. We have 2 more questions, one specifically for you, Danielle, from a fellow Clevelander. So I don't know whether you see the questions, if I should read it out aloud, or if you can reply to Noah.
Yes. Yeah. So Noah, glad to take that offline a little bit about, working with government bodies on projects. A little bit, as I said, the building is government owned, and we do want to have some conversations, at least around the landscaping around the area, and with our new practice facility. The government, our local government design body, has to approve all of the design and plans for it, and they wanted to make sure native planting, nature was included. So that's something we're very much aware of. But there is a tree coalition in Cleveland that we're aware of and looking to support somehow. We are also going to be talking to the Cuyahoga County Freshwater Institute. It is a newly launched institute focused on freshwater systems and innovation in freshwater, just to learn more about it and how we might get involved. So again, early conversations, but Noah, please feel free to reach out and we can take that offline.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. And then quick question to you all. I think we can turn Guillermo's question to perhaps a bit of kind of a larger scope and ask about the main benefits that you see in just a couple of words when it comes to working on nature, when it comes to engaging with fans. There's a very positive feedback that you've already registered. It might be anything else, but how would you make the case, maybe again or at the end, that our viewers can leave with something very positive and just start thinking about bringing nature in their infrastructure? So I'll pass the floor to Andy. So what are the biggest benefits for you?
I think it's engaging with new audiences, and it's something that's very relatable. It's also a very positive subject if you use it in the right way, and if you get creative with it, it is a great engagement tool.
Super, thank you, Andy. Danielle.
I think there's benefits to our brand to show our community that, you know, we care about nature in our community and want to support nature and access to nature for our fans and the community. You know, and there's certainly brand awareness there. And it's an opportunity for us to contribute back to our community as well.
Fantastic. So community impact, economic impact, brand impact. Nico, what are the biggest benefits for you?
Well, we talked a lot about fan engagement already, so I maybe would love to highlight the business opportunities, because we in our bubble talk a lot about impact normally, but at the end you also need the buy-in of the CEO. So you need business cases, and so it's about efficiency, cost savings that come along with those initiatives maybe. Or it can, in our case, we put up a startup program. It can be just to have their media values, because you have a very innovative product and the major broadcasters are reporting over it. So it's also, yeah, a big benefit for the brand then.
Thank you very much for making the case for nature in cities. Excuse me, to our speakers. And with this, I think we can close our webinar. Please, if you're interested to learn more, open or download first our Urban Playbook and the accompanying toolkit. Follow us on social media, Sports for Nature on LinkedIn, on Instagram as well. And for all those people representing sport organizations on today's call, don't hesitate to reach out to us should you be interested in becoming Sports for Nature Framework signatory. So thank you again to our wonderful speakers, Andy, Daniela, Nico, and Russell. And we look forward to seeing you all at one of our next webinars. Thank you on behalf of the whole Sports for Nature team. Bye.